Well, gracious greetings, Saints, freedom, family, and guests. Welcome to another edition of Living Water for a Thirsty Thirst. Yeah, we continue to talk about these struggles that we have within us, and we've been walking through the top 5. Today, we're closing it out with power. I was thinking about power, and here I am in the car at a gas station, and it was dawning on me the impact of power and what that actually does to us and how it affects us. And so, of course, you put some gas in a car and it lets that car go. But a couple of passages that I want to kind of bring some light to as well in light of power. And it's those relationships that we have, the relationships for those that are married with your spouse, the relationships that we have with our children, the relationships children have with our parents. And so in 1 Peter 3:7, it talks about husbands to treat the wife like she is a weaker vessel. Not that she is a weaker vessel, but to treat her like a weaker vessel. And then in Colossians 3:21, also Ephesians talks about it as well, but it says for the fathers, the parents, to provoke not their children to wrath. And, in both of those passages, it's alluding to how we actually use our power. And I wonder if creature comforts in things as simple as cars have gotten us to a place where we abuse our power. Can you remember little things like power windows? What about power steering? What about power seats? Yeah, those things, you remember when they were like options, when you had to manually roll up your window? You remember you had to manually slide your seat back? You remember wrestling the steering wheel when you didn't have power steering? Yeah, I think that's how God even wanted power to be. There's so many power passages, that are in the Bible. And, we know the word is dunamis. It's like dynamite. It's explosive. It gives us what we need to get done God's work. And so we need the power of the Holy Spirit, right? And so we walk in the Spirit and we won't fulfill the lusts and the desires of the flesh. So we need that power to overcome temptation. However, I think what ends up happening is power can also be like a drug. It can be addictive when we have that power. And so when power steering was invented and power windows was invented and they were an option, it's amazing that now it's become an addiction, and pretty much it's standard on cars now to have power steering, to have power seats, to have power windows. And it's like, I don't want a car, or I don't want something that doesn't have the conveniences of power. And so same thing comes with titles. We have authority, which is given from someone else like God. And then we also have like that dunamis. So remember, authority, when we see the word power, that's exousia in Greek. And then the other type of power is dunamis, which gives us the ability to do something. One gives us the capacity to do it, or the authority. So there's authority of power, and then there's the actual ability to execute that power. And if we're not careful, both of those can work against us to where we get drunk on the authority that someone said, now you have a badge and you have the authority to do this, and I give you a gun to actually make it happen. Yes, if we're not careful, that goes to our head. Or if I have a spouse and God says you are the head and of that family, if we're not careful, that can actually be abused. And if the Lord allows us to have children, if we're not careful, we can take our leadership too far. And so power is one of those things, as the Bible also speaks of, don't let your good works be evil spoken of, right? And so we want to make sure that we're using power in a way that glorifies God and the people that are around us. And so just utilizing it as a tool, just like I would rather use the button to roll down the window than to crank it. Those are, now in the age where we have cars that can drive themselves, that's a convenience, right? But not something that should be abused. And so Power is something that is necessary. Authority is something that is necessary in our world. But each of us needs to think through those passages and make sure that with our spouses that we are treating them like they're the weaker vessel. And that just simply means that we honor and esteem them and do what we can to repair whatever's going on in the relationship. Because sometimes, you don't want to come back to each other and you're kind of at this impasse where you can't come together. And he's saying, treat her like the weaker vessel, and you go ahead and initiate whether you feel it's right or wrong. That's also the power and authority that I've given you. And, to know your child and to not provoke them to do things that they shouldn't do, needling them along. So big deal. And this is why I believe power is such an issue. People say terms like, oh, they're just on a power trip, or they got drunk on this power. As soon as they got that new job, it just went to their head, and all those different terms. This is where it comes from. So overcoming that power is important. But we're going to continue similar to this, because I think it's something that also speaks to the same subject. For the next few weeks, we're going to really delve into something called stubborn. Are you a stubborn person? Does the Bible even speak about stubbornness? We're going to get into it. Continue to make God proud in all you say, think, and do.